Hi, everyone. Welcome to Nom Watch Review, part of Nom Talk Network. On the show, we review the latest film drops or throwbacks celebrating a milestone while eating and drinking our favorite snacks and drinks. Today, however, is going to be special. On today's episode, we are going to be going to discuss our favorite queer-centric films and TV just to celebrate Pride and to celebrate Pride. By the way, happy Pride Month, everybody.
Yay!
um, Before we start, though, I do want to let you know and remind you that we still have merch, but exciting, we do have a Pride collection of Nom Talk merch, which the lovely people behind me or beside me are wearing. Um, I got a crop top and it was very cropped, but I will be getting my new shirt soon. Also, we are still funding for the Trevor Project. It is a great cause. Go out there, support them. Um, and yeah, but so we can start. My name is Erric Ramirez, and I will be your host this evening. I have my always Voodoo Ranger. This one is a Juice Force, which are delicious. I love them. I always have them. And I am snacking on dark chocolate because it's my favorite snack. But I want to introduce you to our lovely, lovely guest this evening, JP, Liza, and Dixie. Hello, hello. Thank you for joining us today. Um, JP, why don't you go ahead and introduce yourself and what are you snacking and drinking on tonight?
Okay, hi, I'm JP Rapozo. I'm an LA-based writer, director, and actor. And for tonight's episode, I went literally balls to the walls with my food. I put a lot of effort and thought into it. So my theme is from Tu Wong Fu. I'm taking after the red and wild strawberry social that the girls hold. So I went out and I made a whole rainbow and red themed party platter. I have rainbow airheads, strawberry Twizzlers, Skittles, because I don't poop, I skittle. I have a cheese pizza, and because it is Pride Month, I'm running a little bit low on being fruity, so I got a fruit cup with the strawberries. And I also have a strawberry cheesecake. Yay!
Yes, yes.
The Cole Kidman claps.
You you literally outshined all of us. Although if I would have put Dixie up to the task, I'm pretty sure she would have kept up with you. But thank you so much for being here. Liza, go ahead and introduce yourself and what are you snacking and drinking on tonight?
Hi, I'm Liza Dean. I'm LA-based actor, writer, producer as well. Also recently established a certified Enneagram practitioner and teacher. I wanted to bring something more pride themed to the talk, but I do not know how to follow JP after that spread. That was insane. I just brought cherries, and that's what I have. And some tea. Yeah.
Nice, nice. Well, thank you. I don't like that was just the red and wild theme from Tu Wong Fu. You can't beat what he just did. Sorry.
Absolutely
But
not. Absolutely
thank
not.
you. Thank you for being here. And then Dixie, first time on. Thank you so much for being here and joining us. What are you snacking and drinking on tonight? And let them know who you are.
Yeah. Hi, everybody. I'm Dixie Sintas. I'm in Colorado Springs. I'm a writer and I'm a producer. I'm also an enthusiast of all cinema, basically. I have some Reese's and I have some
Nice.
Maple Madness.
Snapple. Snap out of it.
I love it.
Well, thank you. Thank you so much for being here, guys. But like I said, on the show today, we are going to be discussing some films and some TV that are very queer centric or queer themes, either actors, directed, written, theme of it, whatever, wherever it may go, and why we like it, and explain a little bit about it. Um, so to get this started, let's just dive right in. So we'll start with you on this one, JP, just because you did just show us that lovely, lovely red and wild platter of yours. One of the films you sent in was Tu Wong Fu, Thanks for Everything, Julie Newmar from 1994. Can you explain that film a little bit and why you love it and everything?
Oh my gosh. It's like probably one of my all-time favorite films. It is Patrick Swayze, John Leguizamo, and Wesley Snipes as drag queens who go from a trip from New York all the way to Los Angeles, and they break down in a very small podunk country town where they feel like they are going to be completely ostracized. And in the end, the entire town ends up loving them, stands up for them, and are completely accepting over these women. I love this film because I was outed at 23 on the local news. And my friends, my gay chosen family over in Visalia, California, I was at work one night. I came home to my house completely done in rainbow. I had presents, they had it catered. We had a cake with a on it. And I came home to this huge surprise. And one of my gifts was To Wong Fu, Thanks for Everything, Julie Newmar, the DVD. And ever since then, this film holds a special place in my heart because it reminds me of my coming out party that my gay friends threw me to celebrate me being me. And yeah, that's it.
Nice, nice. No, I'm right there. This was going to be one of my picks, and I was like, I'll let JP have it because
Thank you.
you have to. But no, this is one of my favorite movies. I've watched it since I was a little kid. But like you said, Patrick Swayze as Vita, John Leguizamo as Chi Chi, and Wesley Snipes as Noxima Jackson. Like, come on, like so good. And then Wesley going from that to Blade, like all of them being like it was such a good moment in time and just like about love and light and just accepting who you are.
Yeah.
Liza, do you have any thoughts about this film?
I have only seen bits and pieces. I've always wanted to like have a full viewing of it. I've seen it on before, like and about, and I've seen clips of it and been absolutely enticed. Um, and it's just been at the top of the list for a long time, and JP is making a super compelling case for it. I really do need to watch it because it gives off classic energy to me. It looks so good, and of what I've seen of it, I've absolutely loved it. So
And there's so many great one-liners in it too.
So many great one-liners, and then like other people who are in it, like Julie Newmar's in it, Stalker Channing, RuPaul. Like, there's so many stars that are in this movie. Naomi Campbell, a supermodel, was in this. But Dixie, do you have any thoughts about Tu Wong Fu? Thanks for everything.
Oh yeah, it's definitely probably one of the top movies of all time. It's so good. Um, I really like the way that it speaks about certain topics in kind of a fun, lighthearted way. And I think it's really important, especially when we're talking about just kind of the first instances where we're seeing positive, representation in anything, that we get to see this, even if we might want to criticize it on certain levels. I think it holds up better than almost any movie today. And I love everything about it. John Leguizamo is so, oh my God, they are all so funny. If you haven't seen it, I recommend watching it ASAP. And it's definitely streaming.
It is streaming. Well, thank you, JP, for your first pick. Next, I'm going to go to you, Liza, because one of your picks is the 1999 Fight Club, and I just want to get your perspective on that and get into your brain a little bit on why this movie, what it represents to you, and everything.
yeah, I would love to. So I have to give credit to the YouTuber Orowin. I can link it in the chat of the stream, but there's a video essay that he did called "The Queer Subtext of Fight Club," and not a lot of people, I don't think, realize. I mean, we really think, oh, it's like when you really on the surface look at it, it's like the straightest, film, cis male film of all time. But Chuck Palahniuk was in the closet and wrote Fight Club and didn't speak much about his personal life, but wrote Fight Club in the peak of HIV related deaths in the United States. So Fight Club was reflective of that time in history And if you really look at it and dissect it, and in this video essay, this guy does the best job of all of it. But it should be considered a queer film because it's not immediately a queer film to anybody who's not queer. And what's more queer than that? Truly, like, basically, it's like the narrator, the whole film is trying to find his place in a society that he doesn't feel like he belongs in. And so he starts going to support groups to try to basically sleep at night, you know? And so yeah, in these support groups, he is doing what exactly? Connecting with men in a safe space that's kind of undercover and vulnerable, you know, and being able to have closeness and vulnerability with men until a woman shows up. And when that woman shows up, the straight audience by default puts her as the female love interest, but it is very clear to all of us that he constantly berates Marla and can't stand her. And so the first part where people really start to think he's interested in Marla is when he gets her phone number. But when that happens, you can tell it's back into that performative way that he feels he has to be. Like, this is what a heterosexual does, right? And so, you know, he then suddenly this hunky fantasy man, this you know, manifestation of everything he wishes he could be, which is the straightest man alive. Tyler Durden, this like confident, rebellious guy, shows up, and he's more enamored with that man than he is with Marla. First of all, he's, you know, go ahead.
We were all enamored with that man.
I know. Yep, absolutely. Absolutely agree. Definitely. I've heard that picture of Brad Pitt is like the picture that like all men go to their personal trainers with, supposedly. But yeah, he's completely enamored with this hunky male he's imagined up, even to the point where his apartment, you know, explodes. And instead of calling Marla for help, he calls Tyler. And so Tyler kind of takes him into this kind of second, you know, world of an extension of really what that first thing that he was looking for in the support groups was, which was this underground club where you don't tell anybody, you don't talk about being in Fight Club. It's a metaphor. It's a metaphor. And they give each other nods during the day, like at work. It's like he talks about they have a different life between night and day. And so they're looking at each other and they'll talk about it. They give a nod and they go back to their, you know, performative kind of personality, everyday personalities that they have. But it's like, even down to the sex scenes with Marla, he has to literally have sex with Marla only in this performative way that he imagines heterosexual sex would be, like over the top, loud, performative. And he's imagining it from other rooms in his house because he can't actually be in it. You know, like he has to do it from this dissociated place and seeing it through the, you know, another man. And then when they get into the actual Fight Club itself, he is doing this thing where he's physically and emotionally connecting to these men in underground spaces. And it's again, it's an extension of the support, what the support group gave him at the beginning, but it's, you don't talk about it. And I mean, it's like a fascinating multi-layered piece that this man who was in the closet wrote that I think most of society completely misinterpreted as this, you know, even down the best. I was talking to, if anybody knows Kenji before this, and he was like, yeah, the scene where Marla's like, I have a breast lump. I need you to come over and check it. And he's like, okay. And she's asking, do you feel anything? And he says, no. And then she's like, do you feel anything? And he's like as in for me. And he's like, no. And then she's like, well, I could check your prostate, you know, if you want. And basically saying, I know you're gay, like, but I still am in love with you. And he's like, no, I'm good. And then she tries to kiss him when he leaves, and he's like, I'm not into you. Like, the whole movie. So, and then he, at the end, you know, shoots himself, a part of his identity that was completely like this persona, this performative, you know, hetero thing that he thought he had to be. And so at the end of the day, it's I think it's like one of the best queer films of all time. Because again, you know, people who aren't queer don't even pick up on that part, but it was written by a queer man, and it was, I think, about that experience of closeted, you know, the identity, the underground, the secret, you know, and also the violence that is such a part of being gay, you know. So sorry if that was super long, but it's one of the most
no.
interesting, yeah.
No, I mean, I've heard Fight Club is a queer film and everything like that. I've never really deep dived. So definitely that article that you're talking about, I want you to send that to me because it's so
Yeah,
intriguing.
the video, it's a
But
YouTube essay.
our YouTube video. But thank you for breaking that down because I knew the spots kind of that were in my mind, but you breaking it down and explaining it, so cool. Thank you for that. And now I totally agree. This is one of the best gay films ever. Um,
Oh, right.
Dixie, what are your thoughts on Fight Club in this context?
No, I agree. I think it's probably one of the best ways we could even talk about queer films because, like she said, it's not trying to be, it's a story that was written, and the story is the same story we all think about, you know, who am I? It's that same story, but we're also dealing with so many different levels for him. And then, you know, when you first dissect Fight Club, it's very apparent that the toxic masculinity is like paramount. So to understand that he is queer and that this is a whole other context to it, it really makes sense, doesn't it? Like,
It's crazy. Yeah, because I totally took it that way at first too, that it was a toxic masculinity thing. And then to reinterpret it through that lens is like, that's amazing. Like, yeah.
I think that's a really good one, and I'm really glad you brought it up. Thank you.
Thank you.
JP, any quick thoughts on Fight Club?
I actually, now that Liza mentioned all of that, I can now connect the dots. And I'm like, oh my God, okay. And I didn't even know that it was a queer writer, because we have to also remember that just because a film isn't necessarily about a gay character or somebody within the umbrella, a queer writer is still a writer and it's still a queer voice. You know what I mean? We still have that representation within the industry, like myself, and we need that kind of representation. And we shouldn't just have to stick with basic, like, oh, I'm going to tell a gay story. You know what I mean? Just like Ryan Murphy. Ryan Murphy does a lot of that. He does deal with queer issues, but he also is writing regular stuff, and he's a really great writer. I love his stuff. So that representation, just because it isn't exactly about a gay story, doesn't mean that it isn't a queer story.
Yeah, I mean, Fight Club, I didn't realize how perfect of an example it was. The one I was going to bring up was Matrix as one of our honorable mentions was The Matrix because of the director and writer and everything. But yeah, no, thank you, Liza. Next, because we've kind of touched based on early 90s, and then we've touched based on like late 90s. We're going to jump back a little bit with one of Dixie's first choices. Dixie chose Cabaret in 1972. So go ahead, Dixie, explain Cabaret a little bit and why you love it and what it is to the community as well.
So Cabaret is one of those musicals that is not happy in any kind of way. It is probably one of the most gloomiest, bleakest movies. I'd say it's kind of, it reminds me of Les Miserables, but it's so much, there's no hope anywhere. There's nothing, like, it just is so sad. But I really like it as a queer film because it explains how we, first of all, it's about fascism. I should get that out of the way. It is about the rise of Nazism, and it kind of coincides with this prostitute who is a cabaret singer. Her name is Sally Bowles. She falls in love with this other guy who's living in her building. I think his name is Brian, and he is an English writer. I want to say, yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, he's a writer, and he is just kind of discovering things about himself and his sexuality, and he engages in this like romantic relationship with Sally Bowles and this other guy who is kind of a huge, he's a bigwig, he's an aristocrat, he comes in, he's hot stuff, and they both kind of like get the hots for him. It turns into this weird like expose on love and what love means and what people are looking for. On the surface, it seems very shallow. A lot of the things they talk about are kind of brief. A lot of concepts are just songs and musical numbers, and then they're gone. But I really like the way that it can show how first of all, there is nothing, especially for people at that time, especially for the gay community at that time, there was nothing good about to happen for any of them. You know, we were about to see the worst of the worst happen. And it really correlates to kind of where we're at now when we see these kind of terrible acts of violence and they're just normalized, you know. We see it happen all the time and we hate it, but what can we do about it? There's not a whole lot. But the movie likes to bring out this whole other side that shows there's an entire community of people there that are doing things, that are living the way that they want and not worrying about what this person says, what that person says. And it's beautiful in its kind of grotesqueness. Now, I don't know if you guys have seen they did the London cabaret version. They did a cover on, I want to say, what was it? Eric, do you remember?
No, I don't.
You just posted it. It had Eddie Redmayne, and he was playing the MC. And the MC, he is gay in real life. Joel, what is his name?
Joel Grey.
Joel Grey. He's in it, and he does a really great job of like playing this kind of. He like entices you, but he shows that he's very not genuine. And it's the face of fascism, but it's also the face of us when we're trying to deal with these kinds of difficult situations. So that's kind of my rundown of cabaret. I know that it does, I will say there is a disclaimer on it. It doesn't hold up as well, like as say some movies when you try to think about how the representation is good or bad, right? Because there's kind of this coinciding thing where they're like, oh, you know, as all the people become more morally corrupt, then so does the Nazis come into power. Like there's kind of a moral story that you don't really want to touch too much on because it'll make you sad.
Yeah. Well, thank you. Yeah, like Cabaret. I saw that you picked Cabaret, I was like, oh yes, this has to be talked about because it is. You get those queer moments in there, but also Nazi Germany, and then death and love, and it's just such a great inclusion of just like dark, tormented life. Event nobody saw. Eddie Redmayne performed Cabaret last night at the Tonys. You think what you think of it. I think of what I think about it. I'd rather to the 72 version with Joel Grey myself, but neither here nor there. Liza, do you have any quick thoughts about Cabaret?
Yeah, I've seen 2 live performances of Cabaret, I believe, and I've only seen bits and pieces of the movie, regrettably, which is funny because every time I meet anybody, especially in our community, it's, oh, like Manelli. That's like the first thing because Liza, people, you know. But I mean, I love Judy Garland as a gay icon, and I love that she gave birth to another gay icon, queen. And I just know that Liza Minnelli killed that performance and owned it. And yeah, I think it's a great pick for a queer piece. Yeah, it's great in every way. I really liked your little dissertation on it, Dixie. That was good.
Yeah, no, and I completely, you brought up Joel Grey, Dixie. We can't leave out without saying that Liza Minnelli was in this film, one of the greatest gay icons in this, or still alive today in this lifetime. JP, do you have any few quick words about Cabaret?
Yeah, I'm going to piggyback off of what Liza just said about Liza. So Liza is like a gay icon, and I'm sorry, this role of Sally Bowles is another role like Barbara Streisand's funny girl role, Fanny Bryce. No one else can touch it. They have set such a high bar for those roles that it's very hard for anybody else to go after them because they're iconic. And Barbara Streisand and Liza are iconic, and we have to give them their props where props are deserved. I did direct the 1998 version, the Oh my God, Alan Cumming version. I did direct that in my little small town, which is very homophobic. And the stage show and the movie are completely different. There are characters in the movie that are not in the stage show, vice versa. There was a gay kiss right at the beginning of the 1998 version, that did star Alan Cummings. And I didn't back off the punches. I let the actors go for it because we all decided like we're just gonna go for it. If we're gonna tell the story, we're gonna tell it right, and we're not gonna rewrite this. And people did walk out. People did walk out of the show because there was a gay kiss. And the theater company, they got so many complaints about it that they made the excuse that I was the one that chose it, that they didn't, when in fact they were the ones who asked me to direct it. They hired me to direct it. And I said, if we're going to do it, I want to do the 1998 version. And they said, okay. I'm like, oh, but have you guys read it, yo? Have you read it? I go, oh no, it'll be fine. We love Cabaret. We love Cabaret. I'm like, oh, it's completely different than the movie. And they really thought they were going to get the movie version. And that's just, I'm sorry, that's not my fault. But they did try to place the blame on me. You know what? I'll take it because at the end, I was still proud. All of my actors, most of my actors on that stage were queer, part of the queer community. And I was happy that we got to celebrate ourselves. I also let them make their own little stars and triangles for whatever they felt like they represented. And that was a big part of them developing their characters. And in the end, this story needs to be told.
Yes, it does. Yes, it does. No, I completely agree. Great choice, Dixie. Something that you said, JP, going into my choice of being who you truly are. My first choice of a movie that I wanted to bring up is the 1990 documentary Paris is Burning.
Yeah.
Paris is Burning is a documentary that chronicles the New York drag scene in the 1980s. So it encompasses the ballroom, which is voguing and shablamming, what they call it now, but like voguing, and you follow these POC people who are trying to live their lives and who are actual drag queens and trans women and gay men. And a lot of these people who are in this documentary actually grew up and came a part of the business and have made waves throughout what we do now. So like there's Brooke Extravaganza, Andre Christian, Dorian Corey, which very interesting. During the filming of this movie, behind her, you see all of her clothes and loveliness. There's a trunk behind her that you see throughout this entire documentary. After she died, they were cleaning out her apartment and comes to find out she had a body in that trunk the entire time that had been in there for like 20 years. And it was just mummified because she killed somebody because she used to be a hooker. And she just wrapped him up and put him in a trunk and then filmed this whole movie and he was there. But we also get people like Paris Dupree, Pepper LaBeija, which is one of the biggest names, Willie Ninja, who's probably Willie Ninja taught Madonna how to Vogue. So that's how we got Madonna how to do Vogue, the song. But it just shows this slice of life in New York City where people of color, trans women and men, and this community that had nowhere else to go because it was AIDS and everything like that as well, and drugs and getting kicked out for being who you are. And they created their own houses, their own families, their own love. And through that, they were able to get bigger and better, build themselves in this industry. And a lot of this community has a lot to thank because of what they did. So I could not have done this tonight without bringing that up because they did a lot of the stepping stones to help us be who we are today. Like, I'm sitting here clacking myself with the fan because I'm hot. They brought these in because they would swoop out and they would do voguing and they would show off to it. And it's just so lovely that a movie like this was being able to be made. Now, I am going to ask you guys, I'm going to open up the floor because I know JP maybe have seen this, but I don't know if Dixie or Liza have seen this. So I'll start with you, JP. What are your thoughts on Paris is Burning?
So I love Paris is Burning. I'm currently getting my MFA in writing for theater and media, and we have movie nights. And every single semester, without a doubt, we can always depend on, no matter who the instructor is, that they're going to show this film. Because it is that, once again, I'm going to use the word, iconic, okay? Because let's be real. the entire Vogue scene, the entire drag scene was basically, it was the prize of Black and Latino Hispanic drag queens. You know what I mean? Or transgender people. We have to, and with that said, we have to give praise to Marsha P. Johnson right now for throwing the first brick at Stonewall, which is exactly why we're having this episode tonight and why we have Pride, because Pride was what? A riot. So we have to give notice to that. And Paris is Burning is the prime example to be able to continue all of their legacies. I mean, you, like you said, the House of LaBeija, the House of Ninja. We have, what was the show on HBO Max that they had for a while about the voguing?
Pose. We have a Legendary.
We have Legendary. We had Legendary. And these houses still exist, and they were on the show. These houses, LaBeija, Ninja, all of these epic, historic houses where our culture basically came from, they still are being represented by new family members to this very day. They are still families. They are still houses. And Paris is Burning is just, that's their history.
Now, Liza or Dixie, have you guys seen this movie or know what we're talking about? Okay, just wanted to double check. It is very, if you know, you know, and if you don't, you don't, but that's what we're doing this for. Go and look at it because it is another slice of life that you may not have touched base on. But now we're going to actually jump back to you, Liza, for your next film. And the film that we are going to go to, we're going to bring it up again to the 2019 Portrait of a Lady on Fire. Go ahead and explain a little bit of that, or that to us, and why you like it so much.
Portrait of a Lady on Fire is an absolute masterpiece. The first time I ever even heard of this film was actually, I think it was a year ago, that I went to a documentary screening. It was a film that dissected the male gaze, which, you know, we had whisperings of what the male gaze was for a long time, but there was never really any sort of like documentary on it that I had ever seen. And this film was a centerpiece of that. I looked at all these different films, but really there's not a lot of films that have been referenced as like founding the female gaze, because really we don't know entirely what that is. And it was written and directed by a lesbian, and the woman who starred in it was her actually ex, and so it's this beautiful collaborative effort on two lesbians who are exes working together in art, and it's got no musical score, so the whole movie, I have chills, is in silence, which is adding so much tension to this relationship, which is really, it's taking place in, you know, historical period piece France. And it's like, there's only one man in the whole film. I believe, well, not true, but there's only one man who has a line in the whole film. The film is really the story of, there's a girl who, you know, painters keep getting commissioned to do a portrait of her to send to her husband-to-be to like entice him, which is basically the concept of the male gaze, is women are to be desired, not to necessarily have desires themselves, but to be the muse. And that was the entire point of the film, was to deconstruct the idea of the muse. And so this woman keeps not letting these male painters paint her portrait because she doesn't want to be married off. And she also doesn't want to be an object, you know, to be looked at. So this woman is commissioned to go paint her portrait, and she's all covered up when they meet for the first time. She won't let her see her face. She doesn't want to be an object. So she takes back her agency by covering herself up and only showing what she wants to show. And of course, in the background, you have this tension between the painter and the woman whose portrait she's supposed to be painting. That's just, without music, it just adds so much. Music is only shown twice in the film, and the impact hits you so hard I've never seen a film carry itself like that, where it's silent the whole film. And the way that when they use music, the impact is so intense on you. And really, it's a masterpiece on so many levels, not just for queer cinema, but for women as well, and for women and for lesbian filmmakers. And but it is, you know, also cool because it's not that these kinds of stories are not important, but it's not your typical queer story that you see where it's a coming of age story of like coming into terms with their sexuality, or that like, you know, it really challenges. It's more that the character's queerness is not the centerpiece of the story, but like an aspect of their personalities, you know. And that's the kind of, I bring up all the films I chose to talk about tonight kind of have that flavor of like, they're not, it's not that there's anything wrong with the pride in a gay film, but I never feel, I think a lot of us during Pride feel like we're not depicted in the pictures or in the media, or, you know, that we don't feel there's a place for us at these events, that we don't feel seen, that we don't, you know, we're not queer enough, we're not whatever, we don't fit that model, that role. And so I really do feel compelled by films that I see where it feels like this is a film that is, it's anybody could relate to it no matter what their gender identity or their orientation. It's like a human, you know, a piece of humanity that's captured, and it just happens to have a queer subtext to it, which is the one thing I have to bring up too, is that a lot of lesbian films are made by men and straight men, and they over sexualize the lesbians' bodies and exploit them, and it's this very male gazy fetishized thing. Whereas the one of the coolest parts of Portrait of a Lady on Fire is that they show this intense you know, tension, this buildup, but when you finally cut, you know, have this, they start to connect and you know the sex scene is coming, it cuts and they're in bed the next day. And it's like, because that's not what is the most important. And I think that's the most misunderstood part of being queer, is that it's like everyone gets in bed with you and tries to ask you all these questions, you know what I mean? And it's like, I love that it completely cuts the sex out to say, yeah, that's not what this is about. You know, it's about love between two people ultimately. So that's all I got to say about that.
No, and I watched the trailer for this. I kept myself on mute. But I watched the trailer for this. Unfortunately, I didn't have time to watch it, but I was so intrigued. And especially you saying that there's no score to this film has
It's
me way. It's a what?
It's a slower pace because we're so used to music kind of driving it along. You know what I mean? It goes a little slow at the beginning because but yeah, you got to respect that it carries itself through that. It's impressive.
Yeah, no, that is very impressive. I'm definitely going to have to check it out. I am, guys, going to move on to our next film. So we are going to jump back to Dixie on this one. We're going to go with the 2018 Love, Simon. Such a cute film. Go ahead and explain that film to us, Dixie, and why you love it.
I love this for a lot of different reasons. I have had two different people come out to me after watching this movie with them. I think that it is probably one of our generation's better films that has been put out, and its representation was designed specifically for that, to make it easier for people to come out, to show other people, hey, coming out isn't what you think it is, and it's not about you. It's about the person. And I think it's really, it's heartwarming. It's a coming of age story as well as kind of a coming out story, and finding out who you want to be, who you want people around you to know who you are. And if anyone hasn't watched it, I would highly recommend watching it. It is, I don't want to take up too much time on it, but there's a ton of the actors from 13 Reasons Why in there. And I do like that because 13 Reasons Why, I think, is also another great piece of like queer representation. It in that, not the happy-go-lucky way, but in a more realistic way. And the fact that they are able to come into this and turn almost all of their characters around and portray completely different characters, I really like that as well. Trying to think what else. I don't think there's really anything else I wanted to say other than I think there are several queer members on the cast, but I can't remember who produced it or who the director was.
Yes, there are several queer
Stephen Elliott.
people in the cast of the film, and behind the scenes. It was very incorporative of everyone, no matter gender, race, anything like that, which is a lovely point of Love, Simon, is just let's all be together. But thank you for that. Liza, JP, do either one of you have anything quick to say about Love, Simon?
I unfortunately have not seen it yet.
Babe.
You would love it, JP. I'm just saying.
All right. I'll check that one off with the one that Liza just talked about as well, because I haven't seen that one either.
Yeah, well, now that I'm talking to you, JP, we are actually going to jump to one of your next movies, the 2016 Moonlight. Go ahead and explain Moonlight for everybody out there.
So once again, this is another film in school on movie nights every single semester. This is another one that gets shown. It won multiple awards, Best Actor. It's just it gives a different perspective, and it gives a different perspective on our community by following the story of Chiron, who lives like basically in the projects. His mother is a drug addict. Other people have to take him in at times because the mom can't be found. He's from the hood. He's kind of like, he's a gangster. He ends up being a gangster. But he struggles with his sexuality, and him and his childhood best friend, and during their teens, they were fooling around, and then they kind of separated ways because of Chiron's decisions. And in the end of the movie, they come together, and I won't spoil if you haven't seen it, but it's a really cute moment. Even though both of these guys have chosen different paths in their lives, they still come together because love is love. We'll just go with it. Love is love. But it does give a different perspective of like this Black man growing up in this culture where Black men, you're supposed to act and behave and be a certain type, especially if you're from the hood, especially if you're from a tougher area. You're expected by your community to act and perform a certain way. And these underprivileged communities, you get sucked into crime, you get sucked into the gangs, you get sucked in. And it's not always, there are queer people who belong in these communities, you know what I mean? And they're not represented. And Moonlight does just that. It represents a community of individuals who normally don't get the spotlight. And it's absolutely amazing. The film follows, I don't know if you guys know it, it follows Chiron from when he's a kid, getting picked on and getting bullied, all the way into being a teen, all the way to being adult. So it's like basically like 3 different chapters. So you see exactly what Chiron is going through. If you haven't seen it, it's beautiful. One of my favorite things about the film is that it's called Moonlight. There's a lot of blue lighting in this film, and just cinematically, photography wise, it is just gorgeous to watch.
Oh yeah, I completely agree with you. It is a gorgeous film to watch. The lighting, the acting, the story, they just so beautiful. It won for a reason. Just saying. Yeah. Liza and Dixie, do you guys have anything to say about the movie Moonlight? I almost said Starlight, and that's a different thing completely.
It was definitely like one of the most beautiful things. It definitely deserved that win, and I'm so glad it did win. Like the cinematography was amazing. I was actually in a cinematography class and we watched it, and you just can't even believe how they did all these things and how you're seeing it on the screen, and the fact that it almost didn't win and that whole thing, it was just almost broke my heart, literally.
that right there.
Oh my God.
I'll just echo Dixie's sentiments on it. It's beautiful. I think it was one of A24's like first like films that came out.
Yeah.
But yeah, amazing choice, JP.
Yeah, amazing, beautiful film. Thank you so much for that, JP. I'm gonna go with my second choice of a film, um, which was funny because originally I was going to pick Some Like It Hot with Marilyn Monroe. And then I had a change of heart because there's a movie I love called Connie and Carla. It came out in 2004. So what Connie and Carla is there's these two women who love musical theater and dinner theater and performing and everything. So they're doing this little act in like an airport type thing, and their boss gets murdered and they witness it. So they decide to flee and run, and their choice, they're like, where can we go? Because they have our book of like all these dinner theaters across the country. So we can't go anywhere. They're like, New York, Florida, and they're like, no, we'll find us. We have to go to a place where there's no there's no culture, no theater, no musical theater, and we can hide away. So where do they choose? They decide to go to Los Angeles. So they get to Los Angeles, and when they get here, they end up in West Hollywood. Um, and they find this like apartment to live in, and nothing's really going right for them. And so they decide to go get drunk. And they go into this bar. They're like, all these guys are hot. And then the guys start making out, and they're like, oh, we're in a gay bar. Like, okay. And then they see a drag show, a wonderful, wonderful drag show. And these drag queens are leaving, so they're going to hold auditions to hold a new show. So Connie and Carla get this great idea that, hey, we're on the run anyway. We love to perform. Let's dress up as drag queens. So let us women pretend to be men who are going to then pretend to be women. And audition. So they audition, they sing live musical theater. And throughout this, the reasoning why I love this movie, they get the job, and so they're turning this gay bar into a dinner theater, which I have my own issues with dinner theater, but I love this movie. But throughout this, they become friends with the queer community. All of these drag queens, the bartenders, they're there for each other. I forget his name. Why do I forget his name? David Duchovny is in it, and his brother's one of the drag queens they meet, and they're kind of haven't talked in years because he's gay and he's straight, but it shows them coming together at one point in the movie because he doesn't care that he's gay or a drag queen, but he just wants his brother back, and he loves him, and he accepts everybody around them. All of them come together to accept and build each other up and just be a community and everything like that. There are like catty little things, and like it's very campy, but in the end, like it is such a heartwarming, fun movie. That you definitely have to watch it. And it very much parallels how Some Like It Hot did, except for with two females now stepping in the place of the two males pretending to be women. So it's just such a funny, campy film. JP, have you seen this film?
I have, and it's kind of funny that you brought it up because my thesis is kind of inspired by this film along with Sister Act. That's why back here I'm like, I'm kind of writing something similar at the moment. But it's just an iconic story. I'm sorry, running from the mob or running from any type of like crime as drag queens or as a gay man. That's just funny. It's just funny. I'm sorry. But yeah, I love Connie and Carla. I think it's absolutely adorable. Yeah, thanks for bringing that up.
Yeah, and much like other gay films, great gay films in history, it flopped, but then it found its cult following of people.
Us. Us.
It found us. It found, yeah. So we are actually going to jump to Dixie, or what am I going to jump to? Let's jump to Dixie's last film. Dixie's last film that she decided to go with was the 1994 The Adventures of Priscilla, Queen of the Desert. Go ahead and explain to everybody out there Priscilla, Queen of the Desert, and how lovely it is.
Okay, so we have these two drag queens and a transsexual, and they go on this road trip on their big colorful bus they named Priscilla, the Queen of the Desert. It is a lot like it is very similar to Wong Fu, Thanks for Everything. They wind up in a small town. They get the town to fall in love with them. And they're dealing with a lot of different things along the way. One of them, Hugo Weaving, he is dealing with coming out to his son, which is a super difficult task. There are like so many great, there's so many great instances in this movie of how the world is even still now. Like it's not, this isn't just like a time thing from the 90s. This is exactly how a lot of people think still. This is in Australia. It takes place way over there, but the things you see are very similar. I know that Guy Pearce and Hugo Weaving, they're in it, and the transsexual is
Terrence Stamp.
Terrence Stamp. And it is, he does such a great job that you become so into it, you almost can't see him as anything else. Like once you're watching it, you believe everything that he's giving you. And I love it so much. It's just, like I said, it's another one of those classics. And if you haven't gotten the chance to watch it, I would. It is very heartwarming and uplifting. It's a good one.
Oh yeah, no, it is very heartwarming, and the costuming, and then just them connecting. Like they fight throughout, but they also connect. It's very, very loving. Before I get your guys' opinions on this, Liza and JP, Nom Talk Network has redeemed Hydrate. So Dixie, cheers. Everybody cheers. Happy Pride, y'all. But also for Liza, Cue Ball redeemed You're So Punny. So you have to tell a pun when I come to you and get your opinion on Priscilla. But JP, what is your opinion on Priscilla, Queen of the Desert?
So I've only seen Priscilla once in my entire life. And it was because of my acting mentor in my undergrad, Jim Bontempo. He's like, you're so obsessed with Tu Wong Fu. He's like, you watch Priscilla, and I watched Priscilla. Obviously, I fell in love with it. It's just another, I'm gonna use the word, iconic film for our community, which has also been turned into a Broadway musical that was very successful.
Also, for everybody out there, Priscilla is none of the names of the queens on there. Priscilla is the name of their bus that they're traveling through New Zealand on.
Yeah. And just to mention too, Priscilla was turned into a musical, and now they're developing Tu Wong Fu into a Broadway musical. So hey, there's something about our films, you know what I mean? And musical theater. Who would have thought?
JP, who had that idea long ago?
Huh. We had it like 6 years ago.
All right, Liza, here's your time to be punny, but also your thoughts on Priscilla, Queen of the Desert.
I'm like, I feel like such a bad queer. I haven't seen it, and I don't know how to. I'm like, how do I do a pun about a movie I haven't seen? I'm like, oh.
It could be a pun about anything.
Puns. Gosh, Nicole Kidman claps. That's not a pun, but Nicole Kidman claps.
That clap is a pun.
For Pride, guys. Does anyone know what I'm referencing? That like weird Oscars clap she did, where she's like,
very weird. It was like her.
I'm not gonna leave you in the dark. I'll help you.
Okay. Good job. So we're gonna actually touch base on your last movie, Liza, which is Funeral Parade of Roses, 1969. Care to explain that movie for us?
If you haven't seen Funeral Parade of Roses, I don't care what you identify as. If you're the straightest person alive, you should see that film. It is one of the most unbelievable, undefinable. It's impossible to define this film. It's basically a gender-swapped Oedipus Rex, and it's from the 1960s, way ahead of its time. Actually, this was post-war Japan, post-World War II. And it's a staple of queer avant-garde cinema and post-war Japanese new wave. It's basically portrayed the underground gay and trans subculture of the 1960s in Japan, and it kind of invites questioning of identity in its many layers. They show a lot of different things here that are way ahead of the time. They show an interracial relationship in Japan between a Black man and an Asian trans femme, unmatchable inclusion of gender fluidity. A lot of people say Stanley Kubrick ripped off this film. It has editing that is so beyond anything you've ever seen. It is art. It is beauty. It is like visually a feast for the eyes. If you love film, if you love cinema, you will feast on this film. It's like there's incredible scenes where they show, there's one scene I have to bring up. There was a dance party and they show all these different trans and cisgendered people, and it's fun. It's like a fun, positive, everybody starts kind of ripping off their clothes and the lights get kind of distorted. And it sort of blurs the lines where you no longer know who's trans, who's cis. And it becomes about solidarity, love, and acceptance. And like the binary just doesn't even matter in that moment. You're just seeing people as people. And I think one of the really, really interesting parts of at least film history is that this was a film that was created by a Japanese filmmaker that was not just like a theorist, but a neo-documentarian, which a lot of people don't know was a like a predecessor to I have it written down. Sorry, I'm like going through my notes as fast as I can. I went to town on this one because this one is like the crown jewel of all the films I've talked about.
From what I've saw, that's why I waited for this one for the last for yours. Go ahead and take your time, but yeah, no, go ahead and take your time.
Oh, sorry. Yeah, it's just that like there's so many good parts of this, not just like as from a cinema perspective, but then from a queer perspective. It's the film theorist who created this film kind of has this idea of that avant-garde film was really good at looking at the inner experience, but not so much the outer. And then documentarian style film was so good at looking at the outer, outside of like the director's kind of subjective view of, his or her characters, their characters. So neo-documentarism was actually unknown to Matsumoto, the director, a prototype of transgender theory, because, avant-garde film and document, like it's essentially the marriage of, it goes in and out of a narrative about this kind of gender bent Oedipus Rex, and then interviewing in a documentary style all of the trans femmes in the film, sometimes trans femmes on the street, random people, and intercutting it into this in a way that kind of loses its structure. And with the really intense, crazy editing, it's disorienting. But it is just like no other film, I swear to God, you have ever seen in your life. It basically challenges queer identity, and as like it challenges the gender binary. It challenges there's all the interviews peppered throughout kind of show that people talking about, again, they interview the actors and they interview just random people and kind of come to see that gay is not necessarily synonymous with homosexuality, and that boy is not necessarily synonymous with male. And the Japanese word for trans femmes at this time was literally the English gay boy, was what they called them, gay boys. So they ask a lot of them, why have you chosen to do this? And all of those types of questions get addressed from all these different perspectives. So it's sort of this all-encompassing film that kind of challenges, it's so in the 60s, so ahead of its time. Like, I could just bleed for this film. This film is one of the best films there's ever been, in my opinion. It is unbelievable. Like you just have to watch it. Like I could just go on and on and on about it, but it is unbelievable, this film. Like it's a feast.
Oh, trust me. Once you sent this over to me, I like did my little bit of research that I could do on it because I didn't have time to watch it again, unfortunately.
course. Yeah, yeah.
But it looks so intriguing and like just also like the change of it being Oedipus and it being like killed mom, slept with dad. I was just like, what? Um,
Yeah.
I did also hear, sorry, ambulance, I don't know what that's going. I did hear that it didn't get well received at first. If I read something at first that it didn't get well received, and then starting
Yeah.
picking up quickly.
Which is
Um,
interesting to point out that pattern of like how queer film usually kind of does. But it was, if you know, I don't know if anyone is like looked into like Japanese history of film or anything. They know Ozu or Kira Kurosawa or anything like that. But the classic Japanese cinema was kind of over after the war, and so the government actually got like funded the youth to make films. So in a sense, it was that very indie film thing of like the youth, and they were given a budget to just make films, and they made these experimental queer, full-blown gay sex scenes, like, interracial, and like it's like in the 60s in Japan, which is like radical, like just unbelievable, just I'm so glad. If I've enticed anyone to watch a film in my life, please watch that film. You will thank
oh,
me. It's so good.
that'll be it. um, Dixie, do you have any thoughts on this film that she just explained? Because like it sounds mind blowing to me, and I'm so intrigued to watch it.
Yeah.
Your thoughts?
I haven't seen it, but I am really interested to watch it. I am very interested in the way you're talking about the scenes being edited together. And I really like the idea, the whole concept of it is just, it sounds so exciting, you know? I'm excited to watch it.
Okay. And then JP, thoughts on Liza's last movie pick?
As soon as you said Oedipus Rex, I was all in. I was trained in classical theater. I love Oedipus Rex. You give me Shakespeare's Titus Andronicus. You give me anything all messed up, screwed up. I'm going to be all in for it. Thank you for the recommendation. I definitely need to watch this now.
Oh yeah, definitely watching it. Probably tomorrow night.
Yeah.
All right, so before I get to your last pick, JP, I am going to jump to my last pick of movie. So I was very much torn because we have a honorable mentions list because there's so many films out there that we want to talk about. And like I said, I had a couple on there, but I decided to go with The Boys in the Band 2020. And it was only because like I had made my picks and then I was like, let me just throw this on. And I forget that it's one of my favorite plays. But also the movie did so well. Pretty much what the movie is, it's set in 1968 New York in a single apartment. It doesn't go anywhere. Like you see them like buying ice or something like that at the beginning. But it's set in an apartment where a group of friends gather to have a birthday party for one of their other friends, and the host of their apartment, the owner of the apartment, is Michael Jim Parsons, and he invites all of his friends. So he invites Zachary Quinto, who plays Harold, Matt Bomer, Andrew Reynolds. Let's see, I'm blanking out for some reason. Andrew Reynolds. Let's see. Charles Carver as a cowboy who was on Desperate Housewives. Robin De Jesus was Emery. Brian Hutchinson plays Alan. Michael Benjamin Washington plays Bernard. And Tuck Watkins plays a guy named Hank. And it's just them in this apartment. And they're talking about their sexuality, kind of being catty for their friendships, their sex adventures that they've had. This guy being kind of promiscuous, this one not being promiscuous at all, this one not drinking. It's just a slice of life in one night of how everything would be so good, how they can fight, get over it, go on to something else. One of the characters ends up being a straight guy, and he kind of causes drama as well. But it's so good just to watch and see this slice of life of them being their authentic queer selves in 1968, or them representing that, and it's just so lovely to watch. And I believe the writer of it originally for the play was part of the community as well, and then they since adapted it to the movie. But they did so well with it as well. JP, do you have any thoughts on the boys in the band?
I love Zachary Quinto, and this film made me hate him in a good way because
I hate him normally, and I like him in this film.
I love Zachary Quinto. That is daddy. Give him my number if he's watching this. Not kidding. No, I love Zachary Quinto, and this film made me hate him, but in a good way. It's so well written. This is a good example of a successful film going from stage to film instead of the opposite direction. I'm choking on this pizza. The gay is killing me.
Sorry,
yeah, right. Sorry. I got way too excited about Zachary Quinto being my daddy. No, no, it's definitely a good film, and it's a really good representation, like I said, of something going from stage onto screen, but maintaining that same kind of ambiance, because like you don't, when you're watching the film, you don't realize this was a play before, but it just works so well in like this one singular space with all of these gay men from different experiences. And they do touch on like the different types of people in the gay community, right? They touch on somebody who had an alcohol problem. They touch on people who's too promiscuous, someone who doesn't like to go out and be promiscuous because they're scared of whatever. And it's like they're all friends, but all of their personalities clash. It's the perfect recipe for what happens in this film.
Oh yeah, perfect representation of everything. I love it. Dixie, Liza, do you have any thoughts on this film? I know you may not have seen it, but do you just have any thoughts? We'll start with you on this one, Liza.
Sounds unbelievable. Incredible recommendation. I'm definitely going to watch it. It sounds extraordinary.
Nice.
Yeah.
And Dixie, any thoughts? I always catch people eating.
I haven't seen it, but it does sound very interesting. I'm definitely gonna have to watch it. I know that I've heard about it before. I think it's been on my watch list.
Oh yeah, no, it's good. So now we're gonna end our film section with our wonderful JP. He decided to go with the 1996 movie The Birdcage. So go ahead and explain The Birdcage to everybody out there, JP.
All I gotta say real quick is you do an eclectic celebration of the dance. You do Fosse and Fosse and Fosse. You do Martha Graham, or Twyla, or Michael Kidd, or Madonna. That's all I gotta start this segment. I had to do that. Robin Williams is one. He probably is my all-time favorite actor. May he rest in peace. Anything he touches is gold, and Birdcage was gold. Once again, this was a film that I hold dear to my heart because I do come from a very conservative family in a very conservative area. And I have, like I said, I was outed at 23 years old by the news because I was not comfortable in coming out in my area or to my family because of political views, because of religious views. And so this film really spoke to me because you have a son who's marrying this daughter of this conservative family, but the son comes from a gay dad with his drag queen wife, basically, a mom who's completely disappeared, which I can relate because I only grew up with one parent because one of my parents disappeared. And it just deals with that trauma of like being told that, hey, can you do me a favor? Can you just not be yourself? And even though the film is a comedy, that's a very hard hit to anybody out there who has ever experienced like, oh, hey, just FYI, can you just like kind of calm it down, or can you kind of like lie for me because I just it just basically means like they're not proud of you. They don't understand. And like I said, it is a comedy, but this film is pretty hard hitting. A lot of us in the queer community, within the LGBTQIA plus community, we do have our voices hushed quite a bit. We are told by our families to calm it down on social media, calm it down in life. Why do you have to be so gay? Why do you have to be gay? And this film touches on it. And I think it's a perfect example of, once again, a chosen family, right? We have a chosen family. And I think that this film really comments well about that. Because let's be real, a lot of the films I chose tonight were about chosen family, because our community is about chosen family, because a lot of our families do reject us. We come out as gay, we come out as lesbian, transgendered, queer, non-binary. And once we're out there and we're brave enough to be out there, we get the rejection, whether it is completely obvious that we're being rejected, or if the family just starts slowly moving away, which I am currently experiencing. We only have ourselves to depend on. And so I'm really glad that this film actually ended this, because we need to touch about that. We need to be proud. We need to talk about our chosen family. We are a community. We are all in it together. We may not always see eye to eye, but this film is a good representation of us just being us, like us just always supporting one another and just being there. We all know what we're going through. We all know these fears in our society, especially with the current political system and the current political climate. We're just constantly being attacked. And what do? We come together and we fight. Did Eric disappear on me?
I did. Sorry, I dropped my papers. But no, I totally.
Sorry, I went on a little bit of a tangent, got a little emotional, but hey, it needed to be said.
Oh, you were fine. No, it is so true. All the films that you have selected are about chosen family, and that kind of actually is the theme with kind of everything that we've chosen. Is no matter what you are, who you are, you will find people, you will find your family, you will find your person, you will find yourself, and it'll all always, it gets better. It always does. But like, especially, and that's why I kind of saved the birdcage for you for last, is because it is like Nathan Lane's character and what's his name? Hank Azaria's character, super effeminate and out there. And then you get Robin Williams, who's a little bit more like manly and everything. And then you get Senator Kelly and everything like that. It's just the spectrum of everything. Plus, give me Christine Baranski anytime. Liza, what are your thoughts on The Birdcage?
I absolutely love that film. I actually hadn't seen it until, believe it or not, last year. And I can't remember what led me to like finally watch it, but obviously like the talents of Nathan Lane and Robin Williams in a movie together, I was like sold on that alone. I don't remember the original story of La Cage aux Folles. Like I don't remember. I know originally it was like that was the story, but I know that the two filmmakers who made The Birdcage, like I think they were a duo of. I think they were a couple or something. So I know a lot about the backstory, kind of, but it's oh my god. So I love that film. I'm so glad. And JP, I'm all for getting emotional about Pride. I'm here for it. So thank you for that. I was totally locked into that with you.
Oh yes. No, I totally appreciate that, JP, because Pride is emotional. The good, the bad, everything. Pride is emotional. Feel it, love it. You are loved. Everybody out there is loved. I'm about to get emotional. Dixie, what are your thoughts on The Birdcage?
Well, it's just a great movie. It's wonderful, it's funny, it's real, it's got so much depth to it. It's one of the best, I would say, Pride movies to watch.
Oh yeah, it's one of my go-to watches every year for Pride. That, Tu Wong Fu, a couple of others on this list, like go-to.
I wanted to say that JP's monologuing that Robin Williams part, it reminds me of one of my favorite, what I consider one of my favorite queer pieces of media, which is the Whitney Houston BET speech. If anyone remembers from 2001, where she's like, Aaliyah, Jesse, Michelle, like she's doing that whole Ulysses. Thank you for holding down the fort.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
That speech for life, for life.
anything Whitney for life. What are you talking about?
For life. Yes.
So we are going to switch gears a little bit because we still have a little bit of time and we have 4 more things to talk about. We are going to talk about some queer television, queer shows, be it, again, acting, directed, written, anything, what it means to you. And we're going to start with you on this one, JP, with your choice of the 2000 series of Queer as Folk. Go ahead and explain it.
This was hard for me to choose because there's so many on television, thankfully, that we can actually be able to watch and be proud of. I had to go with Queer as Folk because it's actually the first TV show that I was introduced to that had gay characters. And that was about only gay characters. That had semi-nude scenes with gay people. And I feel like I need to go with Queer as Folk. I thought about Buffy a little bit. I thought about Glee. Eric knows that, but I had to go with Queer as Folk. These characters are just very iconic. Not the remake. The remake was absolutely horrible, but the first one, it was so horrible. But the first one, Queer as Folk, it was another one of those presents that I got in my little coming out party. I got the first 3 seasons, the DVD sets from one of my managers at work. Introduced me to it, and then Queer as Folk became one of those staples with me and my queer friends who gave me the coming out party. We would go, if there was a new Queer as Folk episode or an L Word episode coming out, we went over to my friend Janelle's house and we watched it every Sunday or whatever day it came out. We watched it together because that's what we were. That's who we were. We were being represented on television, and there's just so many great characters in there. You have Michael, the lead character. He's a little messy, but you have his mother, Debbie. Debbie is like the perfect, iconic, supportive, gay mother ever. Parents need to take note about that character because she was tough on him, but she loved him no matter what. You had my favorite couple, Justin and Brian. Let's be honest, I really wanted to be Justin because we had some daddy issues and I wanted Brian too.
Then you already said you wanted Zachary Quinto, so
we all wanted Brian. And then you have Emmett, the little flamboyant one, which was great. So it's another one like The Boys in the Band, where you just have a TV show with all these different types of gay characters from different areas in life, but they all just kind of come together, even though they're oddballs. Normally you wouldn't see all of them together. You wouldn't think they'd all be together, but they are. And it went on for 5 seasons. So it was really good representation. It holds a special place in my heart.
Oh no, I completely agree with you. I am a little younger than you, but we had cable at the time and it would come out super late on HBO.
Yeah.
And so I would sneak to go watch it because I was just like, oh my God, they're so hot and I'm gay and I love this. It was my secret hidden one. Kenjinator, I have no idea what ad time is, but guess what? You're now getting an ad time, Kenji. This ad is for Kenji. Woo, 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 woo. Happy Pride. I don't know what that is. But thank you, JP. Now we are going to go to Liza's pick of TV show with the 2007 Pushing Daisies, which I absolutely love this show. JP, you have to show the pie for this one. I'm just saying. But Liza, Pushing Daisies.
Okay. I am so glad that there's some fans of the show here. I was shown this by one of my dearest friends who is loves everything camp about the world, and obviously, this wasn't brought up for that reason. It was just this thing. It's his favorite TV show, and I'd never seen it, and it has the iconic. I'm going to use that word, JP. Lee Pace, who is arguably the sexiest man alive of all time, for real, beautiful man. And it's not an outright, queer show, right? It's the subtext. So Lee Pace wasn't really out for a long time. Lee Pace has now been happily married to a man for several years. But in an interview that only came out maybe a year ago, it was someone had kind of brought up, is this, a queer show? And there's a lot of reasons that I've really thought about for that, but Lee Pace said, absolutely, the show is queer for sure. One of the things that he loved about it and making it, that it creates its own queer space, and that's art, is what he says. And so basically the character that he plays, the pie maker, Ned, lives this kind of closed off life, making pies while keeping a secret. I'll try not to spoil it, what the secret is, but if anyone hasn't seen it. But then this woman he used to love named Chuck, wink. I thought that was kind of, her name's Chuck, like, just saying, comes back to life, into his life. And the show is really kind of queer coded in a lot of ways because they're not allowed to touch. And there's that constant sense of longing of, we can't touch each other or we won't be able to be together. And so they're always kind of living. I mean, that is like the most romantic hell, isn't it? Is not being able, it really is. I go back to that whole, the over sexualization of queerness in a lot of media, and how this really triumphs that in a way that talks to the romance. I mean, you're just so affected by the love between these people. And I think we all probably in our time have maybe felt that way about that person that you never touched, and how profound of a love that you have for them. So it really, it reflects a lot of the queer experience. They have to make out through saran wrap. There's Kristen Chenoweth, a queer icon in this, who plays Olive and is like arguably the best character. On probably my favorite Kristen Chenoweth character to end them all. Artisanship of like the set pieces and the characters is somewhere in this world of like extreme camp, but it's one of the most visually artful shows. And the storyline, like, I just have to say, it's just one of my favorite shows that I've maybe ever seen. And it's a short list of shows that I like would say is one of my top 3 even. And I would say it's maybe top 3. So really the fact that I could bend it to the Pride episode is like, yeah, like, it has this queer subtext in it, but it really truly is like a beautiful show. And it's starring, a queer man, and who I don't think a lot of people realize is queer, actually. So yeah, I love everything about Pushing Daisies, and it got canceled in the writer strikes back in 07,
08.
08, yeah. So it kind of dropped off. Like, the second season had to end really abruptly. And so what everybody really wants to see is that show, because they reboot in Hollywood. It's all about the reboots. That's all they're making. That's all they care about. Reboot Pushing Daisies. That's like what we want.
I mean,
that's what the people want.
Heroes isn't a talks to get another reboot. So Pushing Daisies needed to get a reboot. Plus, also, I have to agree with Kenjanator here. Papa Pace. That's my daddy. Yeah, that one. Always and forever.
Forever.
Forever. So I realize I'm kind of going in year order for our TV shows, because we started in 2000, then we went to 2007. We're going to go. Say that again.
I want to say something just real quick, but like basically piggybacking off of Liza. I know you're like, oh, I fit this into this somehow. Let's be real. Pushing Daisies, 2 of the stars are Kristen Chenoweth, like you mentioned, and Ellen Greene. By default, it is a queer TV show, because those are 2 of our queens.
Oh yeah, by default, Jay. Dixie, did you have any thoughts on Pushing Daisies? Have you seen it?
Oh yes, I've seen it, and I was very upset when it ended. Very upset. It was so wonderful. I hope, fingers crossed, it comes back, because I've been waiting for so long. So long.
They just need to round it out and finish the story and then give us more. Um,
And then give us more.
Before I get to my pick, because my pick is next. Cue Ball has redeemed Take a Bite. If you have no more food with JP, I'm not worried about you. Go ahead and mime about it or take a drink.
That cheesecake looks
Okay.
delicious. Oh my God.
So I'm going next with my pick. It is a show called Please Like Me. It started in 2013. It's an Australian-based show. This comedian named Josh Thomas pretty much took his life in his early 20s and made it into this comedy drama TV show. To where it starts off where his girlfriend breaks up with him and within the first 5 minutes, breaks up with him over a Sunday, and then she's like, you're gay. And he's like, no, I'm not. And she's like, no, you're gay. And he's like, and then the whole I think it lasted 4 or 5 seasons. The whole first season is him actually realizing, like at that first episode, he realizes he's gay, but then like learning how to be gay. And then the second season is him being in his first relationship. Third season gets a little deeper because not only is it talking about like gay issues about being queer or being kind of slutty or anything like that, it also brings in the mental health aspect of his life because his mother had, in the second episode, tries to kill herself. So he has to take care of her. And also another lovely, lovely comedian named Hannah Gadsby. If any of you have heard of her, that's where she kind of starts her role, and she's also very depressed and kind of suicidal and everything like that. It's just a wonderful. I think for me it was around the same age as him when I was watching it. It was just a very good representation that if my life is going this way, and you live across the world, and your life is going this way, and all the other people in your life still have these struggles and these things. It was just beautiful to see that they were able to do that, plus be able to bring in the mental health aspect, which a lot of things try not to do. And also, like, we can get over this. Okay, it didn't work. To show if it doesn't work, what happens? If it does work, what happens? Like, it's just such a beautiful show, and I suggest everybody to go out there and watch it because he is actually a very good writer as well. Liza, have you heard of the show? What are your thoughts about this?
It sounds so familiar to me. I'm like, I feel like I haven't heard of it, but then I'm like, no, when you describe it, I feel like I've seen it, like, or not seen it, but like seen of it, heard of it. It sounds enticing. I'm like, this sounds really good. Like, I
Oh
want
yeah,
to hear more as you were talking about. I'm like, tell me more. Like, this storyline sounds incredible.
and if I did tell you more, it would start giving stuff away. So I
Oh yeah,
can't.
yeah,
But
yeah.
they're only 30-minute episodes too, so it's a very quick watch per season.
Love that.
Yeah, it's very encompassing, and each episode kind of encapsulates itself so beautifully. But then there's the overall arcing thing. JP, have you seen Please Like Me, or thoughts on it?
I have not seen it, unfortunately, but I'll add it to my list.
Okay. I mean, Dixie, what are your thoughts on it?
I haven't seen it either, but I'll definitely have to add it to the list.
Good. I give everybody something new to watch. Okay. So now we're gonna jump to Dixie's choice for a TV show. And this one was 2014's Glow.
Oh,
Go
yeah.
ahead and explain this to us. Or 17's Glow. 2014-17. One of the two. Sorry.
So Glow is the Gorgeous Ladies of Wrestling. It's about it's a fictional version of a real team, I believe, a real league, the Glow League. And I love it. It talks a lot about trans and lesbians and all kinds of different things that you wouldn't even think about really when you think about wrestling and all that kind of stuff. It talks a lot about the performance aspects of wrestling, and it talks a lot about, I think, exploitation. It's not necessarily in a bad way, but it's in a more realistic way. I really liked it. I enjoyed watching wrestling. So for me, it was really cool to see all of the different characters come to life.
Yeah, no, I've heard of Glow. I haven't watched it. I'm very
Yeah.
intrigued by it.
It's like a comedy dramedy.
Yeah, and plus I do like wrestling. I have to watch it with my roommate because she's obsessed with wrestling. So that's a good one to watch. Liza, have you heard of Glow or have you seen Glow? And what are your thoughts?
So I haven't actually watched Glow, but I was in Glow. I was in the show in the background I was in a couple scenes. I don't know which episode. Um, yeah, I was in a small room with Allison Brie at one point. I remember a sunglass shop employee, and I played a mall patron. And it was like an episode where they were all dressed up in their costumes and they were like going down the escalator at the mall. If you remember that, I think they were like working on their personas and stuff. So
Yes. Oh my God.
you'll have to
Oh my
look.
God. Now we gotta pull it up.
Yeah, you'll have to see if I don't know if I made the final cut. I was like cut from I was in like Lethal Weapon, the show, and I had this extreme close up, and I told everybody it was like when I first moved here, and they cut me, and it was like
Oh.
everyone from back home was like watching, and after that I was like I can't even like get attached to that because it's all up to the editors. So I don't know if I'm in it, but that's the episode I was in. But I do know that Glow is a great show. It's just great representation and yeah, lots of
Now,
yeah.
now I definitely have to check it out, and I'm going to be watching for you. And by the way, I did figure out because I just have bad handwriting. 2017 is Glow is when it started. But I think we might have dropped out JP. We'll see when he's coming back. But that is it for tonight, guys. We have discussed so many movies and so many TV shows. Before we go, though, there are some honorable mentions of movies in queer cinema and everything, such as Rocky Horror Picture Show, Everything Everywhere All at Once, But I'm a Cheerleader, Boys Don't Cry, Pink Flamingos, The Watermelon Woman, another one called Blowjob, Milk, Nowhere, and The Doom Generation. Just to name a few for you guys to check out, and because queer cinema is out there, you can find it. There's representation. It is lovely and it is gorgeous, and I'm glad that we're here to give you some of our thoughts on movies that make us happy and represent for us in our explanations. But that is it for tonight, guys. We are now out of time. So again, I'm your host, Erric Ramirez. You can find me on all socials at Heartless7. That's HARTL, the number 3SS7. But JP, where can they find you out there?
You can find me on all of my socials at JP Rapozo, RAPOZO. You can also find me this weekend at the Stella Adler Theater on the corner of Hollywood and Highland. I am directing a show for Town Street Theater representing Black queer voices. It's at 1:30 p.m. Pay what you can. Come continue the celebration. Come support the art. Come support queer voices.
Oh, yes. Thank you so much for being here. Dixie, thank you for coming and joining the podcast. Where can they find out you out there in life, or how you're doing?
Well, thanks. You guys can follow me on my Insta at DixieMarie93. And I hope to see you guys maybe next time.
Yes, thank you. Thank you so much for being here. And then Liza, where can they locate you out there?
I am the Red Banshee on Instagram. I'd say that's my main platform that you can reach me at. So yeah.
Perfect. Well, thank you. Thank you so much for being here. And also thank you everyone out there. I know some people had to leave because it got kind of late. But thank you all for tuning in, and be sure to join our Discord to keep this conversation going, as well as subscribing to all of our other platforms at Nom Talk Network. I did want to mention to everybody out there, if you are going to any Pride events, please be safe, have fun, but please be safe. And just show pride and show who you are, and be loving to everybody. But please tune into our next show, which is on Friday, which will be hosted by Jordan, where we'll be discussing the 1994 Forrest Gump. And also, happy Juneteenth, everybody out there. Forgot to mention that.
Happy Juneteenth.
Pride and Juneteenth, this is the best month. But next time, guys, I'm your host, Erric Ramirez. Have a nomorific day. Happy Pride. Bye.